Hello, students. This is Professor Karasi with Chapter 8 for Cognitive Psychology. And I think Chapter 8 was creativity. I just saw it. And let's see here. Or sorry, this is not Chapter 8. I apologize. This is Chapter 7, which is creativity. Okay. And I'll go ahead and share my screen. Share. Okay. Creativity. So before we get started, I'd like you to think about what creativity means to you. Um, do you have to be artistic? Do you have to be able to manipulate objects within an environment in a kind of novel way? What does it mean to you? Creativity, to be honest, has always scared me because I never considered myself to be a creative person. I think I've gotten better with age. But as a kid and an adolescent and a younger adult, I really struggled because I have Asperger's syndrome. I've always been very literal and very procedural. So it was always harder for me to detect creativity and for me to implement creativity, even with, sarcasm, for instance, when I was much younger, someone might say something sarcastic and I would take them very literally. And sarcasm could be seen as a method of creativity in some cases. And over the years, I've learned how to think outside of the box and not be so literal. But it took Herculean effort for me to do so. I'll give you an example. When I was in community college, I very easily passed my regular classes. So English, math, all of those were fine. But I was required to have an art class, and I just was dumbfounded by having to have an art class. And unfortunately, my counselor didn't explain to me that, you can do an art history class or you can do an art appreciation class and kind of memorize and do things that I'm really good at doing. Instead, they continued to put me in different art classes like ceramics, etc., that I had absolutely no aptitude in. And it created kind of mini traumatic experiences because teachers did not want to have me in their art class. They knew I couldn't do anything. And so I was just continuing to try and do art, so to speak. And really, the general ed requirement just asks that you explore art, whether it be theory or practical. So I think creativity takes a wide variety of shapes, and I want you to think about creativity that way and why it's important to be able to think creatively. So the first criterion of creativity is originality, meaning you're coming up with the idea or the masterpiece yourself. The idea must have a low probability. Indeed, it often should be unique. Albert Einstein's special theory of relativity certainly satisfied this criterion. No other scientist came up with that idea. So, again, of your own making. The second criterion is usefulness. So, I'm being creative in an effort to probably solve a problem. The idea should be valuable or work. For example, a solution must in fact solve the problem. An original recipe that produces a dish that tastes too terrible to eat cannot be creative. In the case of Einstein's theory, this relativity principle provided explanations for what otherwise would be inexplicable empirical results. So again, this is when a person is being creative kind of as a workaround to solve a problem. The third and last criterion of creativity is surprise. The idea should be surprising or at least non-obvious, to use the term used by the patent office. For instance, a solution that is a straightforward derivation from acquired expertise cannot be considered surprising, even if it were original. And then they talk about Einstein again. So in this case, it's the surprise element is something, not only something that no one else has thought of, but something to do or implement, but also something that people weren't expecting as a potential solution. Definitions of creativity, divergent thinking. The term divergent thinking describes a way of thinking that does not lead to one goal, but is open-ended. Problems that are solved this way may have a larger number of potential solutions, of which none is exactly right or wrong, though some might be more suitable than others. Solving a problem like this involves indirect and productive thinking and is mostly very helpful when somebody faces an ill-defined problem. When either the initial state or goal state cannot be stated clearly and operators or either insufficient or not given at all. So this is dealing with open-ended problems where there's more than one solution that can be helpful, that there's not a clear right or wrong path. So that's what divergent thinking is. Convergent thinking is the opposite. Convergent thinking is thinking that seeks to find the correct answer to a specific problem, which is more in line with defined, well-defined problems. This is an adequate strategy for solving most of the well-defined problems we presented so far. To solve the given tasks, it was necessary to think directly or reproductively. Okay, so this is when the path is clear. Okay. And again, well-defined problems are best solved by convergent thinking. Insight, super important. Um, There are two different ways of approaching a goal-oriented situation. In one case, an organism readily reproduces the response to the given problem from past experience, which we've all done, where we've developed a problem-solving strategy for one problem and then we try it for a different problem, thinking, oh, it'll work this time because it worked last time, and it doesn't. Okay, I'm sure we've all experienced that. This is called reproductive thinking, the idea that we're reproducing the problem solving strategy over again. The second way requires something new and different to achieve the goal prior to learning is of little help here. Such productive thinking is sometimes argued to involve insight. Gestalt psychologists even state that insight problems are a separate category of problems in their own right, which I tend to believe. I think insight problems are a separate category, but insight is when you kind of have what we used to call like a light bulb moment or an epiphany. I don't know if you've ever heard of an epiphany. Um, but sometimes this happens because you're deliberating a problem for so long that finally something goes off and it just clicks. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. I'm assuming you have. I certainly have. Um, or um, you've looked at a problem differently and you've gleaned insight about how you could do something differently. So very, very important skill to have is insight based on past experience and current. Oh, the aha. That's what I was talking about, like in epiphany, the aha experience. So for me, it's usually when I'm studying something so long and so hard, and then all of a sudden I got it. Okay. That has happened to me a lot in my development. And this oftentimes happens definitely through childhood, through adolescence, and through adulthood, where we are just looking at something. I don't know if you've ever heard the expression, I'm so deep in the forest, I can't see the trees. The aha experience is when you do see the trees, like you do see the problem and you do see the solution. The I'm so far in the forest, I can't see the trees is kind of like that functional fixedness. Oh, that was a very short chapter. My goodness. All right. So just to wrap up, creativity What does it mean to you? How does creativity look? Why is it important in our lives? What does it contribute to society? And why is it seen very closely aligned with problem solving? Okay, so that's it for chapter 7, and I will see you next time. I'll stop my share. Bye bye.